Welcome to another episode of the Market Makers in Middle East and Africa podcast. I am your host, Abrar Hussain. Today I speak to a special guest, Amnah Ajmal. Amna is the group executive at Mastercard. Amna, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Amna, very accomplished executive. You have worked across the world, recognized as top 100 financial executive across the world, top 100 fintech executive. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I think my biggest accomplishment probably is less to do with my work. It's more to do with my personal life. I'm, I feel that I am very grateful because I'm raising a daughter who would have all the choices in the world.
Perfect. That's a very, very good answer. Tell us about your, work, what you do, and how you become so successful.
Sure. I mean, successful is like a relative term, as we say. I would say that it's about really, I had like a 15-year vision for my life and then like a 20-year vision for my life. And I feel I've accomplished it. And this is what I tell people. Your career is not about 4 or 5 years. It spans 30 years. And people are overthinking like, oh my God, should I do this move or should I not do this move? It really doesn't matter. It will just even out in your 30-year career. So what I do right now is I look after a region which is called EEMEA. So it's Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. We have 80 countries as part of this region. And I look after all the non-financial institution segments. Plus strategy, M&A, and pricing of the region is with me. So for me, it's I think it's the best job because I get to interact with different industries, be it logistics, airline, hotels, fintech, buy now, pay later, crypto houses, marketplaces, food delivery, ride-hailing companies, telcos, and whatever is new that's happening in any of the industry, any innovation, new technologies that they're embracing, new customer trends, I get to see those. So it's an amazing role, and I get to learn and unlearn a lot, which I think is a very important part of your career in today's world.
This is a very interesting role. 80 countries, very diverse. How do you see in this diverse landscape the convergence of merchants, of commerce, and the fintech?
So I think, first of all, it's important to understand the context. The barriers to industry are breaking down now. So if 10 years back, and I used to be a banker, if someone would tell me that I want to be a bank, I would say, why would you want to be a bank? And I think it's just impossible to be a bank, right? Now you see they're like fintech firms getting into acquiring, acquirers getting into value-added services, retailers who have earlier only loyalty and restricted to their services as just a loyalty as part of a closed loop system are entering into open loop financial services. Telcos are becoming fully licensed banks. So it's a very different world. It's important to understand that. And the consumer has a lot of choices, The smartphone penetration, the fact that your mobile device is actually now your bank or the way you interact with the world, the way you're shopping, the way you're consuming products. So all of that, of course, has had a normal kind of a convergence, right? The barriers to industries no longer exist. So how does the whole industry operate? I think, first of all, banks historically have been very successful. They are still successful today because they have the data, they have the trust, and they have the distribution, right? And the regulators have historically been, of course, licensing financial institutions. There's a huge element of compliance and KYC around the financial institutions. But if you look at what are the other players who have the same three elements, let's take telcos as an industry, right? The margin on telcos' core business are commoditized. Right? But do they have the data? Yes. In fact, they have the data with the context because they know where your device is roaming around, right? With you. Do they have the distribution? Yes. In fact, in some parts of Africa, they have distribution with 3 to 5 times bigger than the banks put together. Do they have the trust? Yes. You do largely trust your telco provider, right? So if I'm a telco in today's world and I have all these 3 elements, I would say, why don't I monetize them? And I think that's where the convergence is happening because they can partner with firms which provide processing services. They can partner with brands like Mastercard, who are experts in financial services and payments. They can then go and partner with fintechs who would be offering deep expertise and personalization in, chatbot-based servicing. So without having any legacy infrastructure of a financial institution, they all of a sudden are becoming very powerful, totally modular IT-based financial services firm. And the same trend now you see in retailers, right? So because the barriers to entry are low, and there are many players who have the same competitive advantage as the large financial institution did at one upon a time, it's very important to understand that the winner will be the one who's offering the best customer experience.
You mentioned a very interesting thing that telcos are coming and maximizing in the financial space. Do you see they're already done it in some of the countries, or do you see still a lot of opportunities for telcos to encash their data and their reach?
So they're the different kind of markets, right? You have market like UAE, which is very mature, and our partner EAND, you can see them, their vision of transforming themselves from a telco to a techno is already becoming live. Not only they have a leadership which actually has a vision, but they are very, very focused on execution. They're very focused on a stellar consumer experience, right? So the product that they launched, the digital wallet, just scaled off immediately. But it's a mature market, so the value proposition and the go-to-market will be different. But then they're also operating in markets like Pakistan, where actually the play would be financial inclusion, because the scale to reach the masses, which traditionally large organizations have not been able to reach, right? But you can already see EAND doing great work in the Middle East and now scaling in markets like Pakistan. Then you have Africa, where we see our partners like Airtel and MTN, who have looked at this massive opportunity of financial inclusion of SMEs. And I would say it's a start of a journey because there's so much more to be done. And they're on top of it. They have the right mindset, the right technology, the right people, and the right speed. And, there's no kind of, it's not a competitive dynamic because there's so much cash out there. There is so much of underserved population that there's a room for everyone to play.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it depends. There are mature markets where you have players like EAND, and then you have Africa, where mobile money is a significantly developed market, where Airtel and MTN have started doing some great work.
Mm-hmm. Tell us some of the transformative digital partnership that you have formed in EMEA region specifically.
So there are a couple of them. I wouldn't be doing justice by naming a few, but just like top of my head, we partnered with Delivery Hero. They have brands like InstaShop, Zomato earlier, Talabat. And, it's about digitizing payments with restaurants, with their riders, co-brand partnerships, marketing sustainability initiatives. And it's massive because you're talking about thousands and thousands of restaurants and thousands of drivers, right? Digitizing that payment chain. And the second one, I would say MTN in Africa and EAND here in this part of the world. Again, when customers are in a closed loop environment, the whole world of e-commerce and cross-border is not available to them, right? And we equip them with a virtual card solution. And when we digitize and open the world for them, you can already see that, it's not the image that the world has of Africa. You see them consuming from Facebook, from Netflix, from Google. So it's pretty advanced. It's just a matter of opening up that market from an e-commerce standpoint and converting the closed loop world into the open loop world.
You mentioned something about Africa and then the GCC, where UAE and Saudi are kind of very mature, and then you still have a lot of financial inclusion to be done in Africa. How do you see the landscape of fintech, and where do you see still opportunities available for entrepreneurs and fintechs to solve?
I think everywhere, regardless of the maturity of the market, because one thing which we have to understand is that fintech are able to pick up a problem and go very deep into it and solve it beautifully, right? But each fintech is picking up one problem, right? It's not they're trying to tackle the whole world. which is something that large institutions do, right? They're offering you a range of services, right? They are really providing for an end-to-end solution. Now, within that end-to-end, they're not going deep and solving for each and every customer challenge that you have. For example, if I'm a telco and I'm offering now financial services products, I want to offer personalization, which means if you land in London, you have a different kind of a product offering or a messaging from me versus when I land in Saudi, right? Now, a telco is not going to enter, or at least there's no need to enter into building your entire own personalization engine. So they can go and actually partner with a fintech that's working on personalization. You go to Africa, data monetization is a big play, right? Because a lot of players have data, but they may not be able to lend. There's certain institutions who lend, right? So there are telcos who would be able to monetize their data by sharing it with micro-lending institutions. And this data sharing mechanism then allows both institutions to actually drive financial inclusion and give access to credit to a population that has been ignored by large financial institutions as an underserved. So again, fintechs have a role to play there. Fintechs have a role to play here, right? So I think the collaboration model between fintechs and large organization has a huge opportunity and a runway regardless of the maturity of the market.
If I ask you a follow-up question on this, let's say there are a lot of companies that we see on BNPL side. We see a lot of wallets as well. Do you see that there are still scope on these, or for example, B2B lending, or there are other areas where you still see a huge scope for entrepreneurs or for fintech companies?
Oh, recently I've seen a lot of work happening in the space of SME, but definitely SME and B2B is a massive play. It's very largely ignored. It's also complicated. It's complex. Those pain points are not easy to solve. But now recently there is a trend of a lot of companies who are looking into SMEs, B2B pain points, trying to solve for it, but a huge runway. Huge, because so far a lot of focus has been on the consumer side.
Yeah. And I still see that there are a lot of opportunities, and even at the side of the SMEs, they need a lot of help to kind of scale.
Absolutely.
How do you see the future of digital payments with new technologies coming in, big tech coming into this play?
Well, I'm not a futurist, but I'm a very passionate believer of whichever way you can harness and monetize data, and you can use the data to offer superior experience, because when everyone can enter into any other industry, it means consumer has a lot of choice, right? And when consumer has a lot of choice, they will choose the ones who are offering them the best experience, the most flexible experience, the most safe and secure experience, right? So I think the firms who are really focused on driving real use cases by leveraging technology. So at times we think that let's do a POC, okay, and then let's see the ROI. And I see some firms like doing multiple POCs and ROI. But you don't have to look for a problem to solve. It doesn't start with technology. It starts with your pain point. What are you looking for? Are you looking for an automation of a process? Maybe you don't need any blockchain technology for that. You just have to relook at your process and automate it, right? So instead of looking for a solution that is finding a problem, start with the problem and the pain point, and then find the right technology that can help you serve it. So I think the biggest future trend would be, and I see that a lot in artificial intelligence, and healthcare industry is a great example, where you're finding the right use cases which are able to solve a real problem. And I'll give you a small example, which a client of mine shared with me, that AI is being deployed from a collection perspective. Now, everybody has to collect in the financial services industry. I mean, a telco has to collect its bills. You're a fintech, you have to collect payments from customers. And usually if it's not your core business, unlike a bank, which has most of the time collection in-house, but even then when it's become really hard to collect money from the customer, there's outsourced collection agency that you give business to. That's a 20% cost, 30% to your business, right? Now, there are AI-based collection services available, which means AI can actually assess from talking to the customers and the voice of the customers, the willingness to pay or actually the capacity to pay, right? And I think these kind of services and use of technology is not like hinging upon let's use the technology. If AI is there, let me try to use it on something, but it's the reverse. It's like looking at a problem and saying, I have this problem. What kind of a technology can solve for this, So I think that's where I see the future is. How many pain points, use cases we can solve, whether it's B2B to become more profitable within our business, or it's financial inclusion to make sure that the world is more equal, or actually it's just to drive a better consumer experience and give more choices to consumers.
You mentioned about AI. Do you see that AI will have a major play in fintechs and the financial industry going forward?
Absolutely. I'm a passionate believer that it will change every possible industry. And some people say, well, artificial intelligence was a term coined in 1950s. So if it has not taken off for so long, why will it take off now? Well, at that point in time, one of the reasons it did not gain momentum was that there was no speed of computing and the cost of computing was extremely high. Now what your mobile phone can do in your wallet, it's extremely fast and extremely cheap. So these two factors would definitely contribute to the growth of artificial intelligence use cases.
Coming to the fintechs again, do you see them as competition or do you collaborate with them, and how you work with fintechs?
At Mastercard, our innovation strategy is actually based on collaboration. It's really like the fundamental way of how we do business. And we are at the center of the ecosystem, right? So we have financial institutions, we have merchants, we have fintechs, we have acquirers. So our role is really to facilitate that collaboration between the fintechs and the larger organization in multiple ways. It could be creating value propositions. So, for example, I, as Mastercard, have a certain product. My customer is leveraging that. They have some pieces of the product. It's almost like a Lego. And then a fintech comes in and there's another piece of a Lego and you put this together. It's a beautiful card that we were looking for, right? Second is data. We have some data. Fintech could have some data. And a large organization could have another set of data. You put it together, it's extremely, extremely powerful. Third could be a technical piece. The technology is moving pretty fast and not everyone has to do everything. You can just figure out who's already done it in the best possible way and then make sure you're just architecting it. So yes, we are a huge believer in collaboration. And I also think no one can innovate alone in today's world. It's extremely hard.
Perfect. Sustainability. I mean, it's a very important topic now for people, even for boards. What's Mastercard's play in sustainability and how you are driving it?
Well, there are different angles to it. There's a people angle. There is a planet angle. We have this priceless coalition, and we have given a pledge to plant trees. Actually, it's yesterday that we partnered with, it's like fresh out of the press, with Lulu for the biggest walkathon. And it is so much of more awareness now, even with my own customers that I look after. And it's just becoming, and that's I think what makes me really happy, that it's just becoming a way of doing business as opposed to, yes, this is an initiative we have to do on the side also. It's just becoming inbuilt into way of how you're working. People part is, diversity, it's inclusion. It's making sure we're working towards a world which is more inclusive, and we include that as part of this initiative. We have some great policies, which I'm not sure the whole world is aware about, but like a slate needs to have an equal representation if you're looking for a role. My entire team has a great representation of women, even at the senior most level. Actually, men are a minority in my team. And then there's a part of financial inclusion, it's something that's just embedded in our culture. How much work do we do to make sure we are financially including people who do not have access to financial services, be it SMEs, be it the farmers, be it anyone in the value chain that is underserved.
Yeah, how do you ensure on this last part that the financial services are accessible to the people where traditionally the banking infrastructure is a bit weak?
Telcos are a great example. they have now almost become like a distribution channel to distribute these services. They have access to SME. They're already doing micro lending. They're already seeing also the results of micro lending, right? So if they lend like a $10 ticket size to someone in Africa, right, based on the data that they have on the phone payment, based on the data that they see on the supplier payment side, right, which is going on mobile money rails, they've already started doing that. And they're much better equipped to do so because they're starting not like with massive ticket sizes. These are like micro nano loans, but based on the repeated behavior of the customers, they're able to scale it, right? So I think that's a very, very important part, because whenever we talk about SMEs are the backbones of any economy of the country, right? And whenever we talk about SMEs, I mean, everything else is great, but I think the biggest problem that's yet to be solved is the access to credit. And I think that's something that's very evident in our partnership with the telcos.
My question on women's leadership, and I can see that you're very passionate about it. What advice will you give to young women who wants to be leaders, and what challenges and opportunities you see for women?
You have to really think at what stage in your life you're going to prioritize what. So, for example, these days, the choices that are available to women, if you want to have that, were not available even as recently as 4 years back. I'll give just one small example. There was always this concept that the biological clock is ticking. It's only ticking for a woman, not for a man, right? A man can be a father at the age of 70, but for a woman, it was like, oh my God, you cross 30 and you can never have a family. But now with the concept of being able to freeze your eggs, it's a choice that technology and biotech advancements have provided to women. Now, it's your choice now. Do you really want to have your kids in early 20s or early 30s or early 40s? It's a massive change in the way we were raised and in the way we thought we should plan our careers, right? I think first of all would be really being aware of the choices that are available to you now and they were not available to you before. The second, I would say, is, I said it earlier, I think, in your podcast. I feel some women are assessing every little move and they're like overstressed about it. Oh my God, I just came back from maternity leave. What would my manager think? They're working in great companies, The companies are prioritizing diversity and all. Like, oh my God, what if I miss a promotion this year? Your career is spanning decades. It just does not matter if for 2 years you prioritize your family and you say, you know what, I'm just going to be in the same job. It doesn't matter. Because at the end of your 35-year career, you're not going to be sitting and saying, at year 5, actually, I think I didn't get this promotion. You're going to cherish the achievements you had, and you're going to cherish your family and your loved ones, right? So it's important to have that balance that, yes, it's a very long time period. I need to prioritize, and that's okay. Third, I would say, is a matter of confidence. And I think research and science has proven it. And I used to do it myself. Like, men, if they're 50% ready for the job, they would raise their hand with a lot of confidence. And I think women don't do that. And I don't know whether it's there's a different kind of research available. It's because of the upbringing, the way it's been done, or it's because the society is conditioning you so much. But I think surrounding yourself with people who believe in you more than you believe in yourself is extremely important, because you constantly need to be uplifted. And the fact that somebody else is telling you can do it, even when you believe that you can do it, it's going to help you push the boundary.
Perfect. Thank you very much for sharing that. My last question, Amna. What inspires you every day and what you're passionate about?
I think in the conversation, you can already figure out what I was passionate about. What inspires me every day is the amazing people I work with. My team is my biggest source of inspiration. I have such wonderful people. Like, I can't be an expert in every industry that I look after, right? So I learn a lot from people. And they're so smart people that I've hired, and I feel they have taught me so much that they're really a source of inspiration. My 3 kids are a big source of my inspiration, because I feel leadership and parenting is so similar. And every day when I'm leaving my home for work or whenever I'm coming back, is just a reminder that keeps you so grounded, and that is like almost the real reality in which you're living, right? What I'm passionate about, I'm really passionate about changing the world, even if I can do a very tiny part in it for women. I just cannot wrap my head around it that till date we have conferences, we have discussions around how women can be included more in the workforce. At one point in time, it has to become a discussion of the past, right? I still see conference rooms which are like 80% occupied with men. Yes, it is hard. It's really, really hard, but we have to do our part. I had roles which were open for more than a year because I could not find a woman on the slate. And yes, the natural motivation would be that your job becomes easier if you fill in a role that you're double heading for. But I just think you need that perseverance and not to give up. I would definitely want that my daughter is not participating in these discussions. So how do you include more women? It's like a thing of the past. Yeah.
Perfect. Really pleasure to talk to you, Amna. And thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks a lot.